At some point, Ford decided that the best way to launch all of its latest models was to reach into yesteryear and pick out the most evocative, nostalgia-driven names so that the new models would arrive with a sense of familiarity. So when they announced that they'd be launching a new Ford Puma as a SUV crossover type thing, I was very, very skeptical. But how wrong I was, because that car is one of the best cars that Ford have made in recent decades. And now, you can buy it without an engine.
I'm not quite sure how I feel about this, because removing the engine from something that was already brilliant feels like tampering somehow, like remastering a classic film or putting ketchup on a steak. Nobody asked for it, nobody needed it, and yet, here we are.
The thing is, I'm just not sold on electric cars. Not yet. I understand that they're the future, but part of me just wants to giggle as my Focus ST warms up and does lots of pops and bangs, because men never mature past the age of 5. When I think back to my Fiesta ST, that was a car that always put a smile on my face every time I drove it. And it's a car that I always look back at as I was walking away. By the time you get to your 5th electric car, are you going to have any that stand out and you think of fondly and remember that way? I don't think so. Not in the same way. I have seen my neighbor go out and plug in his Tesla with that smug face that he always does. And it taught me 2 things. Number 1, I hate that man with a vengeance. And number 2, you might have a point, you know.
So that's what we're going to find out. Not whether the Puma Gen-E is a good electric car, because there are plenty of people on the internet that will tell you that, with graphs and spreadsheets and charging data that will cure your insomnia. What I want to know is whether it's just a good car. Now, we always start in the same place. We always start with power. But this time, for the first time, that power doesn't come from anywhere I recognize.
We've got a 43 kilowatt battery tied to a single motor, making, I think it's 168 horsepower, which is enough to get this car from 0 to 60 in around 8 seconds, which is about exactly as fast as the old Fiesta ST 150. And that was a performance Ford. I'm not trying to say this is a performance car, because it will only go on to do around 100 miles an hour max. So it's not going to set any land speed records. But around town, which is where I think this car is designed for, the word nippy gets overused quite a lot, but it's definitely prompt here. What I'm liking so far is the feeling of the steering is a lot more direct than I thought. I thought it would be kind of wayward and soft and heavy and bloaty, but it's not. It feels like a Ford Puma, the petrol version. Even these really bendy bits where I thought it would struggle and I'd have to slow down quite a bit, it's dealing with them fine. Other people have said that it's rock hard and it could do with a softer suspension and stuff, but those people should spend a week behind the wheel of a Ford Focus ST, because then you will learn what uncomfortable and harsh feels like. Of course, this weighs around 200 kilos more than the standard Puma, which is a bit like having 2 of me in the back. And I'd be lying if I said I can't notice the difference, because you can. But they offset that with the instant torque. You don't need to wind the car up to any kind of RPM like in a petrol car. From here, from the word go, you've got full torque. And that means that when you put your foot down, you get that jolt. That kind of feeling. It's surprised some passengers, that's for sure.
The outside of the car is unsurprisingly very similar to the regular Ford Puma, but with a couple of little changes.
Let me just talk you through a couple of new things about this car. So at the front, we've obviously got rid of the grille. Instead, we've got this sort of Hulk Hogan mustache thing going on. Personally, I would have liked if they kept a black fake grille, kind of like they've got on the Mustang Mach-E GT. That, I think, would have looked a lot better than this body colored thing, because it tends to lose shape when it's all just one big bland color. Just a personal preference. We've also got new headlights with these little vertical stripes in them. It looks kind of something like the back of a Mustang. Maybe that should have been at the back rather than at the front, but they do look really good. Moving to the side of the car, and not a lot has changed. We've got some specific alloys for the electric ones. I am yet to find an electric car with alloys I like, but they've got to balance looks versus aerodynamics to get it nice and fluid to save on range. As it stands, these aren't that bad. They're just not really that inspiring, are they? And at the back, finally, they've changed the Puma lettering from black to white, and I'm unsure how I feel about it. Part of me thinks it looks good. It depends on the color of the car. The other part of me think it looks like they've just left it in primer. I think it looks better black because it looks a bit more premium. Now, Ford say that the white is to help you pick out which one is the electric version of the Puma versus the petrol version of the Puma. However, there's a much bigger instant tell is the fact that it doesn't have an exhaust pipe, and you've got this green tag on the number plate. So I don't think you really needed that reminder that this is the electric version. But the Puma is a great looking car as it is. But I've just noticed the shark fin on the roof is black. Why is it not the same color as the body? And there's a lot of the same story inside the car too. Quite a nice place to be, in fairness. Yes, there's a lot of what people call scratchy, hard plastics everywhere. But I don't really care about that. Like, how often do you get in your car and start rubbing things like some kind of weirdo? When you first get in and start up the car, it's quite theatrical. Very dramatic. If you've got sync 4 here, it's a little bit laggy if I'm honest with you. I think that's just because there's so many different things that's on there, but in 2026 I'd want to see a bit of a snappier display. One thing that really bemuses me is all of the feedback for the last 6 years that all these manufacturers have had about not having physical climate control buttons, and Ford have done it anyway. They've put digital buttons here for the heating display and things like that. Why? What happens is you're driving along, you're doing 60, 70 miles an hour on the motorway, and if you dare to even glance at your phone, the government will lock you up for the rest of your life. But it's fine and totally acceptable for you to be fiddling around trying to find the button and then trying to get this to the right temperature. It's not good. And that feedback has been given, so it's really frustrating to still see it here. At least they're quite chunky and they do respond quite well, even if they are a little bit distracting. The steering wheel is massive. I know why. This big gap means that this digital display is nice and visible, but when I'm doing like a full 90-degree turn, I do feel like I'm opening the top of a submarine. I am quite glad that they've started putting the multimedia display more into the dash rather than on top of the dash, where it can be a little bit distracting. However, I do think this dashboard was designed by 2 different people, and I don't think they got on, because what is this thing on the top of it? It reminds me of when I bought a sound bar and I didn't know how to mount it underneath the TV, so I just plonked it on top of the cabinet underneath the TV. Let's see what it's like in the back. My litmus test is always if I can sit behind myself, so I've adjusted that seat to where I'm comfortable driving the car, and can I sit behind myself? Not for long. My knees are in the seat, in the seat above, and my legs are so high up. Look how much gap there is underneath the back part of my legs. So if you drove like this for any length of time, it literally feels like I'm doing a squat. However, it's not all bad at the back of the car. You see, the boot is actually massive. And I'm not talking massive for a car this size. I'm talking massive. If you can fit a whole me in there with a couple of suitcases to spare. That's because of Ford's new Giga Box, which replaces the Mega Box from the original Puma. Visibility out the back isn't great, but that doesn't really matter because you do get a rear view camera, even if it does look like it's from the PlayStation 1 era. Back on the road then, and my attention turns back to electric vehicles in general.
The question everybody asks is, how many miles will it do on a full charge? And that's such a stupid question, because you never go into a car dealership to buy a petrol car and say, how many miles will it do on a full tank? It's irrelevant. We don't live our lives tank to tank, charge to charge. We go to work. For me, it's about 7 miles to work, 7 miles back. You might pick up the kids and go to shop. You're still less than 30 miles in a day. People always think in the worst case scenario about the time that they had to drive to Newcastle for something. And they're like, oh, well, what happens if I have to do a 300-mile trip? How many 300-mile trips have you done in the last year? Maybe one to go on holiday or something? I would not struggle to live with this car at all, because it would have enough charge to do everything that I needed to do every single day without any range anxiety. I'm not going to be sat at work going, I wonder if I can get home. No. A lot of these car reviews, they go into WLTP, LGBTQ, whatever. I don't want to have to use a calculator to drive a car. It tells you it's going to do another 169 miles. I know I need to stop and charge at some point in the next 169 miles. What's so complicated about that? It's not a faff to charge. It's not a faff to get a wall box installed. It's got enough range for everything I would want to do day to day. It drives like a little mini go-kart. I am running out of things to say that are bad. Ford, what have you done? You've converted me to electric cars. No. Don't worry, we'll do petrol cars too.
So then, the Ford Puma Gen-E is not perfect. The range will not get you to Edinburgh. The interior looks like it was designed by somebody who had already put their notice in, and it weighs about as much as a small moon. But here's the thing, it drives like a Puma, it feels like a Puma, and somewhere underneath all the batteries and the silence where the engine used to be, the soul of the original is still in there, completely intact, absolutely furious about what they've done to it, but in there nonetheless. Is it the future? Probably. Do I like the future? Not especially. But if the future insists on arriving whether I want it to or not, I suppose I can live with it turning up like this. Because for the first time, I could drive an electric car without focusing on what it was missing and instead on where it was going. A massive thank you to the people at TrustFord Cribbs Causeway who were kind enough to throw us the keys without asking too many questions. If you want to see more car reviews, hit subscribe.